If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. That's the age-old cry from the world of hospitality. But today on The Mental Space, we're joined by a leader who's aiming to challenge all of that. Naim Maadad, who is the CEO and founder of Gates Hospitality here in the UAE. Naim, great to have you on The Mental Space.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
So it has, we look at shows like Gordon Ramsay, Hell's Kitchen, lots of shouting, lots of aggression. Hospitality's not often had the greatest reputation, but I know you're personally a really big believer in well-being in the workplace. So just talk me through your philosophy to start with.
Am I glad to confirm that those days are well and truly behind us, and kitchens have drastically changed, not only in the cooking mode, but also in behavior, respect, hierarchy, and that camaraderie. I think that's the biggest challenge that we have been able to conquer over the last decade or so. Again, kitchen, for those who have done time in the kitchen and in service particularly, it's a very, very challenging 1 hour, 2 hour service period across every meal period.
Yeah.
So 3 times a day, you have those peaks where a phenomenal amount of pressure is really placed on individuals. And sadly, a lot of people apply arrogance, rudeness, bad behavior, terminology that's totally unacceptable in today's world in those 1 hour. And which realistically, what they don't understand, the impact that these behavior leaves on people and challenges people is phenomenal. You're basically destroying someone's life, someone's career, someone's mental well-being in an hour shift, leaving deep scars.
Yeah.
Not only that, but you are basically encouraging that behavior. So when individuals leave the kitchen, leave that hot box, when they go home to their families, their friends, they believe that behavior is normal.
Yeah.
And it becomes the norm, which is totally unacceptable.
How have you arrived at that view as a leader then? Because, give me a little bit of your kind of Marvel superhero origin story. Have you come up in hospitality, and have you experienced that? And was it your experiences that taught you, there's a better way?
So from a very young age, I've always been in hospitality. The family's been in hospitality. I've been fortunate enough to have worked in various continents. I've done Australia, I've done Asia, Middle East, and I've seen different behaviors across. My first exposure to such behavior was on an island in Australia, where the chef was an amazing talent, as a matter of fact, but he was extremely condescending in his approach to most of his guys in the kitchen. Yet with the guest, he was incredible, very talented chef. I've actually seen this individual walking into the kitchen. You do know the big bins, right? The big plastic garbage bins that have in the kitchen. The chef would actually come in, would tip that out on the kitchen floor, and would rummage through all of that to see if there is any food wastage or anything that shouldn't be in that bin, that basket. And God help the chef on duty during that shift if anything was found. And that was kind of the epitome of how the behavior was cascaded in that kitchen, how it was handled in the kitchen. And from the day that I was involved in that, and it was one of my objectives to change that, saying there's no need to put shows on to impress others and feel good for 2 minutes and crush someone. We've had multiple occasions where we sat down in a closed, very small offices in the back of house, and said, look, this is not the approach. These individuals have lives, have self-respect, and we're there to nurture and develop rather than crush and conquer. It wasn't an easy task. This was a massive mind shift.
Yeah.
Yet I like to think I left a little change in this individual's approach. I left a little bit of mark in his life. And we stay friends until today, until this moment. And we often talk about how the world of kitchens have shifted from throwing pots and pans at individuals amongst foul language and so forth, into today working as a unit, as nurturing, developing, and making sure that the people in the kitchen are your main asset.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's that kind of like, it doesn't have to be a contradiction. It seems to me when I look at the world of leadership, and say you look back at someone like Gordon Ramsay, I wonder what he feels looking back at some of his early Hell's Kitchens. I think we all remember the one where he put the 2 slices of bread behind, beside someone's head, and what are you? I'm an idiot sandwich chef. That kind of humiliation. I wonder whether, that was clearly for TV, but his defense might have been, well, I was just trying to get the best standard. I was trying to get the highest of standards. But it doesn't seem that we have to do, we can have both respect and high standards.
Absolutely. Again, you would not be able to get away with what took place in those years today for the right reasons, not even for TV shows.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't either, because it's at the cost of someone's self-worthiness. You can't be doing that. Like I mentioned earlier, I think, Scott, the biggest challenge is this is not the 1 hour of pressure. This is the scar that you're leaving in someone. How are you crushing that person? And are they leaving that workplace saying, I hate my job and I'll do everything to ruin that success of the business, or I'll just practice the same in my house, in my surroundings and my neighborhood and so forth. So no matter what, you're not gaining any friends you're not doing yourself a favor, you're not doing the world a favor, you're not doing your society any favors, not even TV shows. I think now you look at those shows and you think, how the hell was this ever allowed to be aired, showed, and nurtured?
Well, that somewhat feels to me like one of the problems we have today with social media as well, with polarization. That kind of content was glorified because it got hits, because it got views and clicks, never alone like whether it was any good for us. When you talk to your friend, was it a case of he didn't realize what he was doing, or where did his behavior stem from?
In defense to a lot of the chefs and my colleague that I'm actually making reference to, those days were different. You had to approach things in that fashion. That was the norm. That was the standard. And don't forget also that a lot of the guys in the kitchen came through off the street, principally. So the approach had to be
fight their way to the top.
Yes, and vice versa. People had to rise through the ranks, but the chefs at the time had to actually put a ceiling on and tell them who boss is at the time, all the time in that approach. So I think times are different now. People are going to culinary schools. People are educated. The people that are coming to a kitchen today are not necessarily only chefs. They have other jobs. They have other careers. They have aspirations, families, and so forth. And they're not only entering the kitchen to say, that's a source of an income. I can work my way through in the kitchen and let's see how it goes. So times have changed. The people that we are getting today in the hospitality are different people, different education, culturally well-traveled and so forth.
I listened to a Simon Sinek podcast one time where he talked about allowing people to be their full selves and creating psychologically safe spaces. And he actually referenced an example in hospitality where he'd been to one hotel where the staff were amazing, and he said it unbelievable. And basically when he drilled into it, it was because the management there had created this safe space where people were allowed to be themselves rather than be forced to be robots. Your experience of that, in the service industry, often it's about how we're made to feel as customers, not necessarily about the robotic service. So have you seen the benefits of that across the Gates Hospitality Group?
So look, again, multiple answers to your question, because it's a fundamental question. One is from a very young age, at the age of 3 to 5, we as individuals are defining our self-concepts by absorbing our parents, our friends, our circles, our families, and the people around us. And that definition of self-concept actually becomes you in the later years. The same as any job, as any roles, kitchens, any other role in life. What you do is, I think what should be very well defined is early in the piece, when you sign the dotted line, definitions of the playground should be drawn up very clearly.
Yeah.
And I say that to my team now. Here's a playground. If you play within the playground, we're all good. We're all enjoying our game. But the minute that you set foot outside of that, you're on your own. And if you fall, you might hurt yourself. So don't do it. So I think what's really transpired to me, Scott, today is, how well are we communicating? How well are we defining? How well are we making sure that the scope, the role is extremely well defined, yet giving people time to perform, to imagine, to innovate and create? We can't manage people. We should lead people manage the business. And that's a big difference.
There was a report came out literally about 2 months ago, which came from the US chairman of PwC, which he made a really interesting statement, which was the war on talent is over. Talent won. And I was with a really good guy, Andy Fieldhouse, this morning, who does a lot of work with teams. And he was making the point that these days talent makes a choice to join your company. How much do you feel that is now true, that actually that dynamic is as much of the employee wanting to join your organization rather than you simply having your pick of anybody and being able to treat them how you like?
True example that I'm going to answer with today. I received a phone call from our PR lady who heads the group PR. Said to me, one of my team would like to come back. This chap, who was a graphic designer for us, left 8 weeks ago.
Right.
So 8 weeks, I thought it's premature. And I said, how come this individual wants to come back? She said, look, reality is salaries are always delayed, and he doesn't feel he belongs in that mix.
Yeah.
So I actually went on and dug a little bit deeper to understand what does that mean. Look, what it confirms to me, Scott, that what we're doing is by no means is it perfect. We are an organization. We have commercial objectives. We have expectations like every other organizations. But all of my leadership team will get a message from me on their birthdays. Now, does that matter? It doesn't matter. I don't have to do it, but I do it because I choose to do it.
Yeah.
And I think it's all about how do we treat you as an individual? How do we treat you as part of the team rather than a number in the team? And last but not least is what value do we make sure you add to the equation when it comes to your role? Because your role is very specific. My role is specific. So all of these roles put together, the perfect recipe is born. And if we can always identify that, we're good. I see you smiling.
Oh, no, I like, because often I use the analogy of the team, in sports and teamwork. I love the way that obviously your DNA is often, obviously in hospitality, because you talked about a recipe and the perfect recipe. That's what was making me smile. I think hospitality is one of those industries that has a slightly different challenge, because sometimes when we talk about well-being in the workplace, we often conflate it with, remote working. And flexibility in the workplace, the ability to come and go, work from home one day, work from wherever you want, that kind of thing. Whereas hospitality is one of those industries that does have some of these unique challenges, because you can't phone it in, you can't email it in, you can't Zoom customer service. So how do you create that sense of well-being when you don't have the ability to give people that extra flexibility that perhaps the creative in the office does?
So in this part of the world, it's still reasonably easy because we have a lot of people who are coming here for work, principally. That's the main reason for being here. So as you're well aware, we operate in other parts of the world. And what we're seeing becoming very, very, very clear to me and the business leaders that we have on the ground is that everybody has a schedule. And everyone's trying to say to us that Monday and Tuesday work for me, or Saturday, for example, works for me. So we're saying, look, it doesn't really tell us what works for you.
Yeah.
But we also have a business objective. So not everybody could be off on a Saturday or a Monday or a morning shift. So we're trying to create that flexible rosters where people can say, these days work for me, these hours work for me, these shifts work for me. Does it always work? It doesn't. Do we try and be flexible? Yes. And I think the win here, Scott, is when people know that you're trying, you're not just dictating, half of the time they actually give in. They help you.
Yeah.
Because they know that you'll pay.
Well, that then comes back to the kind of the DNA of a team and whether or not there is loyalty, trust, a two-way process, give and take, as opposed to literally turn up and do as you're told.
Yes. Look, again, back to my point of hospitality. And the jobs aren't only jobs. You're dealing with multiple nationalities. You're dealing with multiple cultures. You're dealing with multiple mindsets, expectations, speed, reasons for being in a venue. So unlike any other job where people come in retail to acquire something, to make an acquisition and depart. No. We have people coming to celebrate, people coming into work, people coming in to entertain, to be entertained. So there's a lot of psychological pressure on a server, on a kitchen chef, in order to make sure that we understand your objective. Because we can't tell. We don't know if you're there for 2 hours, 1 hour, quick meal, bad day, good day, happy day. So there's a lot of understanding. And for me, it's all about that interaction. It's all about engagement. My company's 4 brand pillars are very simple: engage, belong, enrich, innovate. We don't talk about commercials because really, if you engage, how are you, Scott? Then I'm talking to you. You're not talking to me or at me. We're talking, right? The belong part, we all have preferences. We all have a favorite vehicle. We all have a favorite brand that we like. And I like to think that our repeat clientele base that comes to Gates is they believe in what we do and they are supporters of what we do and they know what they're getting. They know that it's a fair value proposition most of the time that we deliver. So expectations are fairly set. Innovation, and we again for the Valentine's offer in Reform, we're doing some bacon rosettes. As instead of a bunch of roses, you come into Reform and you get a. Now, is it quick? No. Is it fun? Absolutely. Do people talk about it? Yes. Is it on the cover of some magazines?
Sorry, I have to stop you there. I'm just picturing it now. I'm just going to start salivating. Well, just to kind of riff off that, and again, to quote my good friend Andy this morning, just because we were at a joint presentation together, he was saying, he made this really interesting observation about some of the best sports leaders, particularly the guy who came in to coach the San Francisco 49ers when they won all the trophies. And I can't remember the name of the manager, but he was basically saying, the result will take care of itself if you do it. So it's not, the purpose is not the result. The purpose is create the team. And if you create the team and the right culture or in the ingredients, the result will be that perfect recipe. The result will take care of itself. Is that something you subscribe to?
Look, 100%. Again, 4 brand pillars, commercials aren't there. Why? Because I genuinely believe if we nurture, develop, drive those 4 brand pillars, money will come. People will come back. Because again, when people come to Reform, I'll use Reform again as an example, I don't ever want to hear still or sparkling. I don't want to hear, can I get you a drink? No one's there to see me first. They need to have a drink. So the usual, did you find a car park? Is it raining? Is it hot? Did you play cricket? Are the kids with you? Are they? Get that engagement, get that discussion going where you can talk to me and I can talk to you. And then you're setting the stage at ease. And I often say, in Folly, I said, when a wait staff comes here or a chef comes here, I want you to take charge of the evening. I don't want you to sell me stuff. I want you to say, I'll feed you today. We have A, B, C, D. I want to have competent people standing here saying, we do this for a living. We do this day in, day out to everyone in the dining room. And the same in the kitchen. It's about making sure that we understand your time frame, your budget, your spending habits, and we deliver.
Now, hospitality is one of those industries. Well, I know because a long time ago, I used to, work behind a bar and work in restaurants and that sort of thing.
Which side of the bar, Scott?
I've spent more time on one side of the bar than the other, which will come as no surprise to many people. But can be long hours, can be physically demanding, can be physically tiring. You can have hot temperatures in some kitchens. We've been talking about burnout a lot this week. There was a McKinsey report which showed that 2/3 of staff across Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar, captured in their survey, was suffering with their mental health. 66% suffering with their mental health. More people suffering than not. And then talking about burnout again, which has been prevalent, 1 in 3 in that survey. We have previous surveys, and I know you've spoken previously about the Bupa executive service, which had cited bosses 94% burnout, 20% acute burnout. How do you avoid burnout, particularly when you work for an industry where there is perhaps a level of more physicality? You have to be on your feet, you have to be moving. So there is mental burnout, but obviously you have physical demands on your teams as well. So your thoughts on those figures about burnout?
Yeah, look, burnout in our industry, the physical part as well, it's very challenging because again, it's odd hours, not 9 to 5. So your hours change, long hours. There are peaks and troughs as well in the business. So there's a lot of stress factors that come into the business. What we do to counterset that is we make sure the basics are there, meaning when you turn up to work, your uniform is pressed for you. Meaning we try and facilitate as much as possible. The food that you actually get in all of our venues is cooked by the guys in the kitchens. We don't have a catering company that does bulk for 1,000 people and deliver. So what you're getting in that restaurant is the same food quality, the same ingredients that the clients get, the customers get. Last but not least, all the basic stuff, which is an obligation to us, but sadly a lot of people in the industry don't deliver. The visa. You don't stress about a visa. We go through all of that process. You get it on time. There's no penalties. There's no challenges, unless you're inheriting those from previous operators. Payroll. Christmas, I released payroll on the 22nd of December. Why? Because it's Christmas and people have obligations and people have ideas and so forth. So we try and offset these. And honestly, a lot of the times they are appreciated without being appreciated, if that makes sense. Often they are a lot more appreciated when people move on and when they come back and you meet them over a coffee or them seeking a comeback role in the organization or even just for a chat. That's when you hear stuff. It's like all these little things actually matter because we treat you as you should be treated. We're not here to abuse anybody. We're not here to add pressure on you. The job is already more stressful than necessary. The industry as a whole, Scott, I worry about the industry. We're competing with banks, we're competing with airlines, we're competing with office hours, we're competing with every other app that's possible out there. Which is...
So we see in other countries as well. I think you said it right now in this place, because it's a growth area, at least you're able to get, get talent. Whereas in many other countries, I look at the UK, we struggle to attract people into the hospitality industry, particularly post-pandemic. A lot of people just decided not to go back.
So one of our units in central London is 5 floors, and we're running 2 floors, not because lack of demand of business, it's we can't man it. And we can't man it when we want it to be manned. Hence my fear for the industry, and hence my fear for how do we, often on stages you hear me saying now is, my objective now is how do we revive that whole apprenticeship? How do we bring people into, make sure that the industry is a career rather than I'm studying, I need to fund my education. I'll work whilst I'm studying. It's not a bridge. I don't want it to be a bridge. I want people to come in and end up being general managers of hotels like the old days. I want people to come in as a commie and then end up being an executive chef in a kitchen. So we have a massive task role in order to make the industry user-friendly. By providing all the essentials, by providing education, by providing career growth and development. And last but not least, all these awards that I attend and support and so forth, none of those are for me, Scott. I can't take any of those to the bank.
No.
But on the guys' CVs, they love them. And it drives them emotionally, physically, mentally, and they stay with you because they know they're part of a success team. It's important. The industry is in a bit of a dark phase, and we have an obligation to sexy it up again.
Well, it's interesting because, you seem to be a representation or a reflection of a wider issue, I think, right now. And again, if we come back to that, the war on talent, Talent One, we looked at that Bupa survey, and which told us that 50% of bosses, and they cited a term called the boss loss, 50% of bosses wanting to move on to find a better work-life balance. The Cigna result that came earlier, the Cigna 360 survey, that talked about 55% of people this year want to move to find a better work-life balance. And this is also a market, particularly the UAE, they've created this economic mobility for talent. So it feels like you're almost like, I don't know, the tip of the iceberg, but actually when we look across all industries, this is actually the new leadership paradigm, leadership problem. This is what leadership is now, is creating spaces where employees actually do want to choose, come and engage, as opposed to I'm in, I take the wedge, and then as soon as I get a better option, I'm going for that.
Look, no surprise to my ears. Yes, and our industry, over and above everything you mentioned, it's hard work. You're standing, you work on the weekends, you work on Christmas, New Year's. So we have a lot of additional
challenges, barriers,
and also they're destructive social animals, right? Because they kill any potential social avenue you can have. So hence more of a reason to be looking at the way we train individuals, the way we bring them in, and the way we say to them, this is a career and we can enter here and finish here. And along the journey, I don't want people to say I'm entering and I want to reach the top. Along the journey, massive, massive success stories. If you take our industry, unlike many other industries, and I like to see myself as a hospitality ambassador here, is you come across amazing lifestyle opportunities, meaning you travel extensively.
Yeah.
You meet some amazing people. Fashion is part of our industry. Music is part of our industry. Events. Nobody comes out to any party, any event to have a bad time. Everybody wants to have a celebration of some sort. So generally, it's a positive environment you're in. And we need to highlight that because there's a lot of rewards if you focus on the positives. There are challenges like every role. The fact that you're on your feet for 9 hours, 10 hours straight is taxing, to say the least. Not only that, particularly the guys in the heart of house, where they're standing in environments that are very, very, very hard to sustain with the heat, with ovens, jospers, and the rest of the conditions that come with the heart of house positions.
One of the things Mentl is committed to kind of tackling is obviously mental health and workplace. And we often say that we have to start with the leaderships because this needs to trickle down. It needs to cascade through organizations. What would your message be to CEOs, CFOs, C-suites out there that don't get the benefit of mental health? Because you're fairly unique in being a leader that's happy to talk about mental health and happy to advocate for mental health within his organization.
Okay, honestly, I think staying relevant is very important. And by being relevant is being able to speak your mind, being able to express your feelings, being able to communicate. Everybody has a challenge in life. Everybody has a story or two. We all have them, right? And I think the fact is being able to communicate those. Sometimes there are no answers. Sometimes there are no solutions. But the fact that you can actually confide in someone and have that discussion, I can assure you 99% of the time when you leave that discussion as an individual, you feel better because you do realize halfway through that discussion that you're not alone.
Yeah.
80% of the time, someone that you're actually talking to will tell you their side of the story, their experience, and you walk away saying, this is not too bad. I'm actually not as bad as my colleague here or so forth. So
yeah,
advice is communicate. Of course, there's no need to stand on the roof and shout your issues. There are places and people that you can confide in. 2 is don't look for solutions. Look for communication skills, communication avenues where you can kind of let the expressions out and hope along the way you gain some insights that help you as an individual. And last but not least, there's absolutely no shame in speaking your mind in an environment that is relevant to the situation, and hopefully you can leave that room, that meeting, that discussion with a learning as an individual. Those who are hiding it and keep suppressing these issues, keep pushing them under the mats and so forth, sadly, they're out of touch. The world has moved on. The world will continue on moving on. I have absolutely no illusion that social media, 90% of what we see is not endorsed, not officiated by anybody's age. However, there are avenues where we can indulge, speak to colleagues that are in the same sphere that we're in, and get some rest of the world. Because we all have experiences, we can all shed some light into discussions and bounce off one another. And I think the better will be a better place. The world will be a better place if we can communicate better.
That's a much bigger question. I'll perhaps come on to that in a moment with you. But I agree with you. If we look at this McKinsey survey, and I think what was interesting about this McKinsey survey, which is this is McKinsey. So this isn't and I've said this earlier this week, it's not a bleeding heart, woke, liberal, soft, woo-woo mental health advocate. This is a serious institute that talks to the corporate world, talks to the C-suite, and tells them what they need to know to succeed in business. And actually, interestingly, and I will get your take on this. Sorry, I do tend to talk a lot. Last year, McKinsey did this report, and this isn't an advert for McKinsey, but they talked about all the qualities a leader will need to succeed in the next 5 to 10 years. It was quite masculine language, alpha qualities. But actually, when you drill down, all these alpha qualities were all linked to emotional intelligence and empathy. Now, you've grown up in an industry where actually there has to be a degree of empathy. You have to be able to communicate with the customer. You have to be able to put yourself in their shoes. Has that given you a head start in that term? And what do you think about this changing definition from chief executive officer, just make the bottom line, whatever, to now we're using terms like chief emotional officer, chief empathy officer, where leaders now need to inspire and bring teams with them rather than rule by fear?
Yeah, the self definition at a young age, I think, dictates a lot of this behavior and how you as an individual can communicate to audiences or not communicate. And based on your cultural experiences, cultural beliefs, and so forth, a lot of people don't feel they can. I think they, if I take a commie or a wait staff, they feel that they're supposed to be subservient. They're supposed to take orders rather than stepping up. And I think as an organization, what I'm trying to do is make sure that everybody understands their role and the importance of their role. Because without commies in the kitchen, who's going to do all the mise en place? Who's going to do all the preparation? Who's going to make sure that when that rush hour is happening, everything's ready to be served up? Because it's like a bit of a domino effect. If one block is out of the equation, things will stop falling. Simple as that. Emotional intelligence last year was a topic that I really spoke about in depth, and I genuinely have interest in people. One of our leaders in one of the cafes that we have was unwell the last 2 weeks, was in hospital, and we've sent flowers and all of the stuff that we every day I checked in. Why did I check in? Because I know that she has a family. I know that her family relies on her organization as her family here. So my role wasn't as CEO of a company. My role was support mechanism for this individual who was with us here. And if you see the messages that I've received from the family back in the Philippines and herself here, I feel like they're family now. I feel like I can ask them for anything. We can talk about anything. And that is a game changer. These people will never leave the organization. And if they were to leave the organization, they will leave for another industry rather than for a competition, which is very important. And the McKinsey's report, all of these reports, what we should be doing is, my advice is to any leader, stay close to the team, stay close to what happens in the organization. Sending emails out doesn't cut it anymore. Coming from top down, those days have gone. As a matter of fact, the stronger the foundation, the closer you are to the ground, the higher you go, because you know if the foundation is solid. You know when you can build on it, when you can't build on it. And there are times where we don't build, we move on. As a matter of fact, the previous meeting I had, I said to my colleague, I said, look, if we can do A, B, C, D, this project, I don't want to do it. But we've signed. I said, yes, but I'd rather walk away now rather than later. And this is emotional engagement. You are in touch with what's going on. This is about being there, being understood, and being understanding.
Let's get on to that social media question just for a minute, because I was gonna wonder whether or not. I mean, look, we've got rising anxiety. Those surveys tell us 98% of people are burnt out. A lot of people are going out looking. Often they're masking. Often they are stressed. Anxiety is on the rise in general. Are you seeing that translate in the behavior that your staff sometimes have to put up with, or is that one of the missions to kind of create these havens when, as soon as people cross the threshold, somehow it's not spa-like, but you know what I mean? Like somehow there is this relaxing environment where all of a sudden it's a bit like the old Cheers thing, the place where you can leave your troubles at home type thing.
Look, I'm going to use myself as an example. In all of the meetings that I have, there's not a single meeting where I don't crack 10 jokes. And not because I'm...
How many are funny? Only because my dad jokes are terrible.
Look, I don't know if they laugh because I happen to be me or they laugh because they're genuinely funny jokes. But the message that I'm trying to get across here, Scott, is that it doesn't have to be serious. When I need to be serious, I'm very serious. When I need to be in an environment where we colleagues, sure. But I think what's important is that for these guys to know that we have the same blood system that you have, and however, we have an expectation for business because our shareholders, our partners, our so forth, have an expectation that I had to stand there in front of a board and say, this is our objective this year, and me as a leader, I'll deliver those objectives. But I need that whole team in place, that whole hierarchy in place to deliver. So masking of the whole social media, honestly, that's nothing but a bombshell. It's ticking, because those individuals cannot sustain. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
This is all against the odds. And again, going back to our own social media approach, my directives to the team that we have in place there is, I don't want any of our messages to be commercially driven. I want people in the lift who are standing waiting for the lift to go from one floor to another, scrolling like there's absolutely no tomorrow. I want them to stop at our posts, and I want them to smile, because I want to have that engagement of, these posts make me happy. These brands are happy brands. And then they'll engage with us. They'll come and spend money with us. So if we can do that without being superficial, without being arrogant, without being over the top, just stuff that everyone resonates with, then that's honesty. That's engagement at the best level you can get.
You've talked a couple of times about, our worldview formed as we are children, 3 to 5. Give me, what do I need to know about Naim sort of growing up that formed the man he is today?
Oh, look, it's a very dangerous question, because my father passed away 4 weeks before I was born. And I was the only boy in the family, and I'm the only one who carries a Maadad surname, right? So no pressure, but there was a constant pressure in the household. 3 girls, myself, and from the age that I can remember, I've been the man of the house. So a lot of times, I love the way I've been brought up. I love what my family has done. I love what my mum has been able to give us all as family, private tuitioning, schooling, and all of that, and it made us who we are today. But the fact that there's never been a man or a father figure in the house to shape me.
Yeah.
Sometimes it always kind of gets to me at stages, and I keep saying to my own girls, just the fact that you guys can use the word father or dad.
Yeah.
There's something that, not a word of a lie, every time I hear it, something in the back of my mind triggers, positive, negative. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but it's always there. So from a very young age, there's been massive responsibility. Directly, indirectly, I don't think it was directly. It's just the way it was. But it's defined me to the person that I am, and I think it's really made me the independent person that I am. And again, I'm sure you've heard me say this before. It's lonely at the top when you are running an organization. It's very lonely because you can't lean on many. It's leaning on many. It could be a challenge on its own, but it's lonely because the fact that you have absolutely nobody to push you. Every morning, you need to define your objectives. You need to push yourself, and you need to make sure that the entire organization, is on track.
Now, that's interesting, because I was having a conversation this week on the podcast with Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, and he was talking about loneliness. And actually, it struck me this morning, you just used a phrase, which I was actually going to quote, which was, it's lonely at the top. Loneliness and the biological reaction to loneliness is actually now, he was telling me, equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So how do you deal with that? Have you learned to have a trusted friend? Do you have a circle of advisors? Or are you indeed an island? And do you think that actually you still got work to do on, Naim being sort of less independent and actually opening up to people, rather than just on podcasts? This fucker.
Yeah, look, I have to have a deep and meaningful discussion with myself, I guess, about this every now and then. But I'm extremely content as a person. I am very satisfied with my inner sphere, if that makes sense. I communicate extremely well with myself, and it may sound bizarre, but you need to be. I think honesty sometimes, if you're not honest to yourself, you can't be honest to anything else.
Well, you're speaking to this conversation, it's like chills I'm getting right now, because again, Dr. Ranjan was talking about, so 3 pillars of, your core stability being control. Do you feel you've got a sense of control? Are you content? And are you able to feel content in the moment? Are things enough? And are you valuing the right things? And also then alignment. And are you living, to your values? That sounds from that conversation there that you're actually doing reasonably well on those three.
Look, I'm grateful for the way I've been brought up. I'm grateful for my culture. I'm grateful for my immediate family who have really made me independent, but also have given me enough depth and soul to be the person that I am. I value life in general. I value everything that I have. I believe there's a bigger power in the world than all of us. I believe there is a lot of good in the world, and I genuinely appreciate everything. And having spent 4 or 5 years in Japan made me even more connected. For the simple fact, and I'll give you one example, Scott, on the Japanese philosophy and culture. Japanese population celebrates cherry blossom. Right? It may sound very basic, but the fact that the whole population actually celebrates trees blossoming, for me, we walk under them 10 times a day. We don't even look up. Every now and then we may take a selfie or a picture. But the entire population, entire society celebrates it. So I think, sadly, I don't want to give a percentage, but a wide percentage of the world, of the population, is in such a rush for the next best thing, whatever that may be, rather than enjoying the now. I was having dinner with my nephew actually last week, and I said he's moving house, and his girlfriend came out for dinner, and we're having a bite to eat, and they had a terrible day. And you know what I said? I said, stop. And Jake looks at me and says, what? I said, enjoy moving, because it's not a bad thing. Are you moving by choice? He said, yes. I said, are you moving to a better house? He said, absolutely. Got his phone out, showed me the views. I said, enjoy that, because you're making those decisions. You're not being forced to move to a worth address. Enjoy the moment. I said,
is that something that's come with age and maturity, perhaps? I mean, we look out of your office window right now, and this is sometimes I find myself driving around Dubai, and you just get suddenly struck by the light falling on the Burj Khalifa, and just go, do you know what? I'm really lucky to be here. We can see out there, we've got the beautiful, the ocean, we've got the boats, that sort of thing. That ability to stop and just take a look at your surroundings, is that been something you've had all your life, or is that something that you've come to appreciate later?
It is growing. I've had it, but now I'm having the opportunity to enjoy it more. I'm having the opportunity to shine more light on it, and make sure it's part of my daily chores, my daily life, my daily appreciations. My own girls send me pictures of sunrise and sunsets now, because they know that I value that. Now, them taking a picture is one thing, but them appreciating that particular scenario or that scene and taking a picture, for me, I've already done more homework in raising them up by embedding those qualities in them, because that's, sadly, a lot of people don't even see it.
You talked about your father and some of the challenges that you've faced, not having him there as that role model. Vulnerable leadership, human leadership, empathic leadership is something that we're beginning to connect with and realize the benefit of being a human being at any time. We're talking about mental health. Have there been times along the way where you've struggled with your mental health? How difficult or easy was it for you to kind of recognize that? And how did you cope, come through, deal with?
Look, I'm happy to sign the dotted line and bet anything that if anybody in life is telling you they've never had a mental health issue, they are truly good liars or lying.
To themselves.
To themselves, to the world, or whatever it is. But first and foremost, you're right, to themselves. I think mental challenges or it's normal. I have 10 issues every day. It's the question is how do we deal with them, and how do we rise above those challenges? How do we analyze what is the issue? How do I fix it? You look at your phone, you read something doesn't sit well for whatever reason, whether it's personal, business, commercial, it drags you down a bit. But it's at the end of the day, look, I genuinely believe 3 things matter most. One is stability. Stability as in not financial, stability as in approach. You can't be all over the place. You need stability. If you're happy, you don't have to jump up and down and dance. Mm-hmm. If you're unhappy, you don't have to kick and shout. So stability is 1. 2 is, for me, what's very important is respect. If you respect yourself, then everybody around you will respect you, because self-respect or self-disrespect is the biggest enemy. stability, respect, and last but not least, it's ambition. You've got to be ambitious. Otherwise, honestly, it's so easy now to be sitting in this office every day long, looking out the window and say, okay, business is running. I don't need to do anything. I don't stop, Scott. Honestly, I'm having to control my own ambition at times.
Where does that come from? I mean, is that a sense of purpose? Where does that ambition stem from? And where, because you could, the flip side of that, you could say, well, what is enough? Naim, when does the ambition run out? But what are you ambitious for? What is it that you want to achieve?
Look, again, I think it actually all stems back to the fact that I didn't have a father.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that on my mind, irrespective of whether I admit it, don't admit it, think about it, don't think about it, right? I think what I'm trying to do is make sure that me as a person, I'm satisfied with me as a person. And I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Self-satisfaction is very important. Self-respect is very important. And then self-worthiness is very important.
It seems that that's actually one of the biggest challenges we have right now, particularly when we look at, again, I go back to social media a lot, but we've got comparison. We live in a city where there is so much opportunity, and social media force feeds us comparisons, where self-respect, imposter syndrome on the rise, insecurity on the rise, polarization on the rise. How have you kind of gravitated towards that self-respect? It seems like that's something you've grown up with. You've then tried to pass that on to your daughters.
So before I answer that, I want to circle back to ambition, because I think it's a key success point in everyone's life, or should be at least. So ambition is not about what do you have and what's next. Ambition is, how do you maintain self-happiness? That's ambition.
Yeah.
How do you maintain self-respect? That's ambitious. How do you make sure that your circle of friends sees you as rich, not as in material rich, as in knowledge rich, as in let's invite Naim around this dinner table because the conversation will be amazing.
Yeah.
For me, that's important.
I think you just rebranded ambition for a new compassionate age, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Because when we talk about ambition, sometimes we do think about, Michael, I can't remember his name now, the actor, Wall Street, greed is good, Gordon Gekko character. That is kind of like that old-fashioned idea of ambition. And I think that still holds true in quite a lot of boardrooms. Whereas for you, ambition is something perhaps deeper.
Yeah, it's hard. I often use the word luxury. How do you define the word luxury? Depends who you ask. If someone's doesn't have a roof over their head, a house becomes a luxury. So it's one of the same with ambition is. I think for me, it's about seeking a better place in life. That's ambition, no matter what that means for them. Depends on the individual, depends on the time, depends on the consequences, on the circumstances. That's what it means for me. But what's very important is not to get sucked into what we see and what we hear, because a lot of it is not verified. It's not actually true.
I could use a word, but we're on a podcast, so we'll keep it clean. You've been super generous with your time. Love this conversation. It's a question I sometimes throw at quite a few people, so I'm going to ask it you as well. You meet Naim as an 18-year-old man. What do you say to him?
I wish I knew what I know now at that age. But also, and I'm going to give myself a pat on the back here, if I look at my career, at my age, at my maturity, at 18, I saw myself here. And at 50, I know where I'm going to be at 70.
Well, you've just stolen my last question, which was, you meet yourself, I was going to say 80, but let's say 70. Who is it you hope you're going to meet when you're 70 years old?
Look, it's not who it is that, it's what will people say about my legacy, what I have done? What will people say about what I have contributed to their success? I'm going to give you an example. I love giving examples because everyone can relate to them.
Yeah, totally.
In the Maldives, on an island in the middle of literally nowhere, having breakfast. I see this person running towards the table, chef as well, actually. Hi, Mr. Naim, how are you? Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you? He says, you remember me? I said, of course I do. In all honesty, I didn't. Said, remind me, where did we work together? Because clearly, chap knew me, and he told me. And in closing, 4 days later, he actually came and saw me off with his GM at the time, and he said to me, he says, without you, I wouldn't be here. And for me, that was kind of, wow, I've impacted someone's life for the better. And that's very important, because I think if we all contribute a little enhancement, that little ambition, drive to someone's life, that little shimmer of hope to someone's life, there's no better success stories to tell.
That definitely feels like a mic drop moment. Naim, thank you very much for joining us on the Mental Space today and sharing your thoughts on leadership, mental health and well-being.
Thank you for having me.